Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to the Celtic Way. I am your host, John McGinley. I've not been on for a few days. I was off over the weekend, so I'm glad to be back. Glad to see some regular faces in the chat who'll be popping in shortly. Josh, how are you? How was your weekend? How are you feeling about the Celtic week ahead?
Yeah, I'm doing pretty well, John. Thanks. Good morning, everyone. It's been a decent weekend, a quiet weekend, Scotland aside. I've actually not minded this international break in a way because I know that when Celtic come back on Saturday, there's a game every 4 days until February. So I've had a bit of comfort in that fact. And obviously, Scotland has been a nice distraction too in a massive game tonight. So, yep, all going well here and looking forward to the week ahead, like you say.
Yeah, international football, regular viewers will know my thoughts on it. Actually, I don't mind this one either because it seems like, there's stuff of real consequence happening, which obviously makes it a little bit more exciting. I often feel like there's a sense of pointlessness about a lot of international breaks, but at least stuff has been decided in this one, and it's good to see. We've got a lot to chat about today. Obviously, Celtic released an update on the managerial situation last night. Matt O'Neill will be continuing. We've got stuff about, the World Cup showdown, bit of a Celtic showdown in the World Cup this evening. Bit on Colby Donovan as well. There's been some injury news around him. And just a general Celtic chat because neither of us have been on for a few days. Although, if you did catch Josh's video yesterday, with Larry Henry Jr., MLS expert and American journalist, talking about Wilfred Nancy. That was very insightful, so I do encourage you to check that out if you want to. Before we move on with the show, a bit of housekeeping. Now we've got a new offer, everyone, at the moment on the website. This is for the website only, celticway.co.uk/subscribe. There's a link in the chat. It should be pinned. Essentially, you get this free print if you subscribe to the website before the end of December 1st. Now, the current offers are £12 for 12 months, which is the best value offer, but also £1 for 6 months if you don't want to commit to the full year. And you get this A3 print through your door. It's high quality. It's made by Frankish. It's got top work. It's celebrating one of my favourite ever Celtic players in my lifetime, and certainly the best player of the Gordon Strachan years, Shinsuke Nakamura, an absolute icon. I still watch his YouTube highlights, Josh. I still watch free kicks that he's had, some of it, just his passing, his range of passing and his touch. I love Shinsuke Nakamura, so I was delighted to get the opportunity to have Made by Frankie put this together for us. I think it's a cracking print, and it would be adorn the walls of many a Celtic fan, I feel like, and such a low barrier of entry. £1 for 6 months, £12 for 12 months. I really do recommend it. It's not just a small postcard size thing, it's a full A3 print that you can hang on your wall or get framed or whatever. It's really worth it, and I really do encourage you to check out the links. Subscribing to the Celtic Way is massive, and I don't want to oversell this, but it really underpins everything we do, even on the YouTube channel. It gives us more freedom to do more stuff, do this kind of stuff that we like to do. In-depth stuff, interviews, devote a bit more time to the YouTube channel itself. So if you watch us every day and you're a fan of what we do, I really do encourage you to check out the links in the live chat and in the description below to subscribe to this offer and pick up a cracking free print just ahead of Christmas as well. Right, that's enough of the hard sell from me, Josh. Let's get on to the matter of discussing Celtic at the moment. What did you make of the statement last night just regarding Martin O'Neill? A lot of these things at the moment, anything Celtic do at the moment, there seems to be a bit of an outcry, regardless of what they do, regardless of the messages they send out. But what was your kind of take on that kind of non-update, but non-update on Martin O'Neill like yesterday evening?
Yeah, I think that's the perfect way to describe it, a non-update update. You know, the players were going to be trickling back into Lennoxtown this week. Liam Scales, Johnny Kenny, who were away with Ireland, and I think the club just maybe wanted to put out an update for who was going to be leading that. Obviously, with no new manager in place, it's pretty obvious that it was going to probably still be Martin O'Neill and Sean Maloney. So that's basically what the news was. The statement, what I found intriguing, didn't confirm that Martin O'Neill was going to be in the dugout for the St Mirren game, but it probably most likely is going to be. They've probably just not put that in, barring any last-minute hitches that the manager maybe comes in tomorrow or the next day. In terms of his Celtic TV interview, Martin O'Neill, I watched it, and he's still in that kind of light-hearted spirit, which is good to see. And I think at the end of the interview, it wasn't even cut off with the traditional way an interview's cut off. It was actually stopped by saying, "We might not see you again, you never know." Then Martin O'Neill says, "You never know," then it just stops, which is quite funny. So that was good to see as well.
Yeah, now, when the statement came out and the video was released, etc., people were going, well, what's going on with Nonce, Wilfred Nonce? What's going on with the manager's search? Is this all falling through? Is this all a disaster? It's not the case. I'm pretty relaxed about the situation. It's quite clear Martin O'Neill met with Dermot Desmond just ahead of the weekend, and it seems that Martin O'Neill's agreed to continue on until a new manager is found. Now, I don't think Martin O'Neill, genuinely don't think Martin O'Neill would have done that if he thought this was going to be a much longer term thing. From his messaging and his communication last week, he made it clear that he thinks the managerial search needs to be ongoing, and it is. Wilfred Nance is still the preferred candidate of Celtic. We know these things are complicated. They can fall apart quite quickly. We saw that with Eddie Howe. I don't think anything's absolutely guaranteed. I think if it was ready to be announced, it would be announced. But I'm expecting Martin O'Neill in this dugout for the weekend. Even if there's a Wilfred Nance announcement at some point towards the tail end of this week, I would expect Martin O'Neill to be in charge of the St Mirren game. And as we know right now, Josh, every game's massive at the moment because Celtic need the points, frankly, to keep pace with Hearts at the top of the table. So they needed someone in at the start of this week to oversee training and take training with Sean Maloney and Martin O'Neill. I think we both said this time last week, or we've said at various times, if he stays a little bit longer for another match or two, it's not the end of the world for me. I think it's good that we've got Martin O'Neill and Sean Maloney there just to take Celtic through this pretty tricky period.
Yeah, I don't think it's the worst thing in the world, because if you had a new manager and you're dropping him straight into 3 away games on the bounce against St Mirren, Feyenoord and Hibs, I think we said it on last week's briefing, or certainly I said it, that I'd be more confident with Martin O'Neill and Sean Maloney at the helm for a couple of those matches than I would perhaps a new manager who's coming in and still getting to grips with things and working out the squad and everything. So I think it's, certainly probably a wee bit more ideal and a wee bit more kind of in safe hands, you could say. As much as everyone's going to back the new manager and have confidence in the new manager, you never know how they're going to get on in a tough away game like St Mirren, and I don't think I have many concerns about Martin O'Neill taking the team there and trying to get a result, and because he's proved it already that he's stable the ship domestically, and I would back him to continue to do that.
Yeah, and I think this St Mirren game's got challenged. I think St Mirren are a good outfit under Stephen Robinson. I rate them. I think they're good at what they do. I think they've got clear game plans, and I think they can give anyone in this division a game on their day when it's going well for them. They've had a lot of gripes about VAR and officiating in recent weeks, like a lot of clubs across Scotland, but they'll be desperate to kind of maybe pick at Celtic here in this kind of limbo period, as we know. But yeah, I'm quite relaxed. I don't think anything's just disintegrated here. I don't think anything's falling apart here. And I know that's some of the anxiety at this point when you kind of get to this moment and nothing's been announced and you're waiting on something, you're wondering why you're waiting, Martin O'Neill staying on. But as far as I'm aware, I think everything's just pretty level at the moment. Celtic are just working through their preferred candidate, which, as we know, is Wilfred Nance. That has not changed. With deals like this, there's also a lot of things you need to consider. Like, he's coming from America, you have the work permit issue, you have trying to agree compensation with Columbus Crew, you have Nancy's backroom team, maybe Kwame Ampadu has been with them for 215 games, ex-Irish international, so I assume he would want to bring him to Celtic, maybe a couple of other analysts, because some vacancies were made when Brendan Rodgers departed the club and he took a lot of people with him as well. So it takes time, and we only kind of heard that Nancy was the preferred candidate on Friday, and we're sitting here on Tuesday. 2 of those days have been a weekend, so literally it was only technically 2 business days ago that we heard Nancy was the preferred candidate. So I'm not too concerned at the minute. Maybe if it drags on to the beginning of next week, end of this week, and we've still not heard an update, not ideal. But I think supporters have just got a wee bit and it's only natural, a wee bit of PTSD just from the way the Eddie Howe situation panned out back a couple of years ago. But not too concerned at the minute. Okay, what else is going on? Colby Donovan seemed to pick up what was feared to be a fairly serious injury on international duty with the Scotland under-21s. He had to be stretchered off of their game a few days ago. He had to go to the hospital and he got x-rays. The good news is, Josh, that those x-rays are clear. They don't show any sort of fractures, so there's hope that he's not going to be out on a long-term basis, which is really crucial at the moment, considering that Alistair Johnston is, and that Colby Donovan is going to be getting some minutes at some point. The Scotland under-21 head coach, Scott Gemmell, said he's gone back to Celtic. He's too sore to play, but the x-ray was clear in terms of no lasting damage. The level of care he got in Gibraltar was fantastic. He went straight to the hospital, straight in for an x-ray, and he was back in the hotel in time to eat his dinner. I think with those injuries, you just can't take any risk, and it was clear that he couldn't continue at that point. Hopefully his ankle can settle down quickly. There's a chance that Celtic may choose to do their own scan, so we'll keep an eye on that. But that's obviously a decision they'll make. So what was feared to be another major injury blow to Celtic, just in terms of the way the squad depth is sitting. Hopefully, Colby Donovan, if he's missing the weekend, hopefully it won't be too far beyond that. Because as we see with the squad depth, Colby Donovan very much needed on that right hand side with Alistair Johnson out. Anthony Ralston is there as well, but he can't play every single game. Celtic have got a hell of a schedule coming up, so you need all the bodies you can get at the moment.
Yeah, definitely. I don't think Colby Donovan has played a minute yet under Martin O'Neill, but he's certainly a body, and Celtic need them at the minute, just given the injury situation as highlighted on the screen here. We know Jemai Simpson-Pusey played at right back in the last game against Kilmarnock.
Yeah,
but Colby Donovan is more of a natural right back, and he's proven, to be fair, as much as he wasn't great against Hearts. I don't think anyone was great against Hearts in that game, but in other matches, for example, Red Star Belgrade away, Brendan Rodgers labelled his performance terrific that night, and that's very hard to disagree with. And he's shown that he can come in and he can certainly do a job. Celtic have got after this run of 3 away games, I think there's a Wednesday night game against Dundee before a crucial run of fixtures against the likes of Roma, Hearts, and the cup final. So that you'd have no qualms throwing Colby Donovan into games like that. So if he's fit, then that's good, because I think on Saturday night, when the headline came out that he'd been stretchered off, I think everyone was feeding the worst. So good to hear that he's actually not too bad.
Yeah, a bit of good news for a change on the injury front, because again, yeah, I was pretty fearful. Brown Warrior asking, has anyone confirmed that Nancy's the preferred candidate? Is this a usual, a good source has confirmed stuff you hear in the media? Listen, it's our reporting on the Celtic Way that he is the preferred candidate. He's Celtic's number one candidate. Like, everyone will take or leave of that as they will. But that is certainly the case. That's the information we had at the tail end of last week, and it hasn't changed at the moment. So, yeah, certainly no one says the guy that they're progressing with at the moment and discussing things with at the moment. That's our latest reporting. But obviously nobody at the club has confirmed anything in that regard. They don't really give updates on that, usually for good reason. When it comes to negotiations and stuff, I don't really mind that. And at least they have updated that, Martin O'Neill will kind of be in place, continuing going forward. I think it got a little bit stretch for me at the tail end of last week, but nobody really knew what was happening, and Martin O'Neill didn't seem to know what was happening. He was giving interviews on Talk Sport and giving interviews on BBC Radio, kind of saying, I'm in the dark, I don't know anything about this, I want a younger manager to continue. By the way, I'm away to speak to Dermot Desmond, and everyone was just a bit, well, what's going on here? But he is back at Lennoxtown, as everyone could see from that interview yesterday. Just on the World Cup stuff then, so obviously tonight there's a massive match. Kasper Schmeichel, Anthony Ralston, Kieran Tierney involved in both squads. Basically a bit of a showdown in the World Cup. I think it's actually a really exciting game, Josh. Obviously, we've seen the exploits of Liam Scales in recent days with the Ireland squad. Johnny Kenny's been part of that squad as well. But Liam Scales, absolutely massive for Ireland. I was so impressed with the way he's gone about his business, because he's actually been playing out on the left flank for Ireland of late. So it's interesting to see Liam Scales perform to that level, because I think he's actually probably been one of Celtic's most consistent and best players so far this season.
Yeah, I was just going to say that. I think Liam Scales is having the season of his life at the moment. He's been doing so well for Celtic, like you say, been one of the most consistent performers, standout performers in a Celtic team that's performed to a pretty average level this season, but he's been a standout in a lot of games, and yeah, did really well for Ireland over the break, playing at left wing back. I was looking at the Irish media, what they said about him after the game against Portugal, and a couple of outlets were saying it was his best ever performance in an Irish jersey, which was really pleasing to see. And obviously 2 colossal assists, the one for Troy Parrott in the first game against Portugal, then the flick on yet again for Troy Parrott in the second game away at Hungary. So yeah, brilliant to see for him. Then Johnny Kenny also making his it was actually senior international debut for Ireland in that game against Hungary, I believe. When he just came on, it was 2 each, and he had a shot saved to make it 3-2. That would have been an incredible moment if he got the goal. But no, good to see those guys doing well. And then Scotland tonight, it's a massive game. I would love nothing more than if Kasper Schmeichel could chuck one in again at Hampden. That would be brilliant. But hopefully, I mean, the main thing from those games, and it's what Martin O'Neill said in his Celtic TV interview, is that the Celtic boys come through unscathed because can't afford any more injuries.
Yeah, but we're kind of discussing, like, with Michel Sirache, which again we're waiting on an update on Sirache, but Liam Scales might have to fill in that kind of left back spot going forward at times. And I don't domestically, Europe's a different thing, and I think we're all realistic about Europe this season. Domestically, I don't have massive concerns about Liam Scales' performance. He just seems to do everything that's asked from him. I just the perseverance, the header the few days before the Hungary game was fantastic, but this header for Troy Parrott's final goal against Hungary was just sheer perseverance, sheer strength of will, everything you love to see in Liam Scales, and I'm just so delighted for him because he's had his critics over the years. He's one of those players, I think, Josh, where he's not as good, because what happens is when a player's criticised, you get the opposite reaction where everyone goes, "Oh, Liam Scales is brilliant, he's amazing," and then you've got this opposite side where Liam Scales is garbage, you can't do anything. As is the case with a lot of things, Josh, it lands somewhere in the middle. I think he's a really good, solid player for Celtic. He's been very dependable, and he actually does a fantastic job, I think, in that defence. I think he's great at defending the box, first and foremost. He's fantastic in the air. I'd like to see him get, and like you obviously want to see Scotland victorious against Denmark. It's been quite the story there as well. It looks like Anthony Ralston's maybe got more chance of getting minutes than Kieran Tierney at the moment. Kieran Tierney was an unused substitute at the weekend. Ralston came off the bench. Ralston's been a large, again, another, talk about a guy who's been something of a stalwart who has come through criticism. For Scotland, at least, Anthony Ralston's been quite an important figure as part of that team and part of that squad. Steve Clarke going again and again with Anthony Ralston at times throughout this qualification campaign.
Yeah, certainly. I think Anthony Ralston gets a lot of undue criticism when he plays for Scotland. He was obviously the guy who was chucked in the Euros a couple of summers ago, playing at right wing back in a five, a position that he wasn't usually familiar with. And I remember the second game against Switzerland, he gives the ball away for a goal, and I think that's his only real bad moment in a Scotland jersey. Since then, I think he's been totally dependable for his country. And like you say, if he came on for the last half hour tonight, I don't think many would have any criticisms of that. Kieran Tierney, maybe not, more likely to get minutes than Ralston, but yeah, hopefully they can do it, because it would be massive if Scotland are able to get to this World Cup. It would be incredible. 27, 28 years. I just wonder, I was having this chat last night with my dad, and I wonder if Callum McGregor's sitting in his house tonight watching the Scotland game, and if Scotland win, does he have a wee decision to make? Can he come out of international retirement similar to what Scott Brown did? Or, I don't know. What do you think?
Oh, I'm not sure about that one. I just think it's gotten to the stage with Cal McGregor where I think something just mentally went in him where he just thought he had to. I understand what you're saying. I can't see Scotland really taking that backward steps either. Like Cal McGregor's, I think he's a fantastic player, but I always think like you've got to go with the players who get you there almost thing. And Cal McGregor obviously took the decision at the start of the kind of qualifying campaign. He wasn't going to continue with Scotland, and these are the players that have got Scotland to this point. Obviously, still to be determined whether they'll actually be in the USA next year, but it's exciting stuff. And like I say, I don't like international football when it feels pointless, but when it feels like a massive match of consequence, then obviously, and there's got a Celtic interest in it as well, then obviously you want to see the game, you want to see Scotland succeed. So I'm quite looking forward to it, I have to be said. Just in terms of Tierney then, a lot of chat about how he might fit under Wilfred Nancy. There's a lot of chat about Wilfred Nancy's tactics. What's kind of your sense of how the Celtic squad might perform or kind of fit into roles if this guy does come in? Because it seems to me that Kieran Tierney might be adjusted to play part of maybe a back three of sorts, which we know he did at Arsenal at times. We know he's done that at Scotland before. That could be kind of his role going forward, which I think he might be better suited to in that system, because I think Nancy's system is very focused on pace in the wide areas, and I'm not sure about Tierney's kind of his overall fitness to go to that well again and again every few days. I think I might prefer him on the left side of a centre back three, for example.
Yeah, I would certainly agree with that. When you look at the formation that usually implements, it's sort of a 3-4-2-1, and there's obviously you have the left centre back role, and I think that would be perfect for Kieran Tierney, especially at this stage of his career. We've seen him this season, and he's been trying to get up and down that left-hand side, but you can just tell it's not the same as what it was when he was at Celtic the first time around in terms of his mobility and his speed and his pace and his power. So if you adjust him to a left centre-back role, I think at this point it would be perfect for him. But then that gives you a scenario where actually all three of your central defenders would be left-footed at the minute, just given the injuries. Austin Trusty, Liam Scales and Kieran Tierney. In terms of other positions in the team, you'll have that obviously left left-sided spot, the right-sided spot too. I'd be very intrigued to see what Wilfred Nancy goes with there. So on the left, you could play Daizen Maeda there. You could maybe even play Sebastian Tenetke there because some of his defensive numbers are decent. And then on the right, I mean, you could argue Daizen Maeda could fill in a right sort of sided role, similarly to maybe Alistair Johnston or Anthony Ralston. So there are a lot of dilemmas and intriguing points to see how Nancy's going to set his team up.
So I was looking back to kind of Nancy at Montreal. Obviously, a lot of people talking about his Columbus Crew years. Alistair Johnston, obviously injured at the moment, but Alistair Johnston played very much on that in that kind of right wing back role, almost on the right of midfield at times for Montreal under Nancy. Obviously, and everyone remembers Alistair Johnston arrived at Celtic ready made for the battle, ready made for action, and that's a testament to the kind of progress that he had made under Wilfred Nancy in that year when he was at Montreal. So I would expect him to certainly be part of that kind of almost right wing back, right midfield role. What happens is, I'm not sure if people are aware, there's been a lot of videos, a lot of chat about kind of his tactics, but those wide players push very high up and almost create a forward line of a 5 at times when Columbus Crew are really on it and pushing forward. The two, it's people call it a 3-4-3, but it's really a 3-4-2-1 with kind of two more central players kind of inside supporting a central striker, not wide attacking wide players. So it ends up a really strong numerical advantage in those areas. But it really depends on kind of the strength, pace and fitness of players in those wide areas. It's so crucial. I think with Kieran Tierney, just going back to that, I think he's still got that burst of pace. He's still got that burst of energy that you can go past the man. And I think Brendan Rodgers described that early in the season as kind of Kieran Tierney's secret weapon to an extent, where he can just burst past the man and take a man one-on-one. And you still see that from Tierney. I think the question marks are about his mobility across the whole pitch on that left side. And I think that's kind of what we're discussing in that sense.
Yeah, and I think Marcelo Sirachi would be perfect for that left side role in a 3-4-2-1. He'd really fit in nicely there. In attack, I'm led to believe Nancy's system somewhat looks like a 2-3-5, where you have the two central defenders, and then you have maybe one of the central defenders pushes up to make a kind of midfield 3 with the two centre mids, and then it's basically, like you say, the two guys on the right and the left bombing forward, and then you have a front 3 essentially in the middle, which that's very exciting and sounds like it's going to be a very fun watch. So I think there are certain players as well in this Celtic team who maybe didn't get the chance to shine under Brendan Rodgers. Players like Paulo Bernardo, at least this season. Paulo Bernardo, I'm really excited to see how he could do under Nancy. Other guys, Michelangelo Balikwisha, it feels like we've not really got a good sense for what he can do yet as a player. He scored a penalty for DR Congo and a big shootout the other night. So yeah, Paulo Bernardo particularly is one I'm looking forward to seeing, because I think he could thrive under Nancy.
I mean, there's certain big winners in the squad. You look at the players who haven't really featured. Well, Paulo Bernardo's can't seem to get a game at the moment. He can't seem to get many minutes at all. I'm interested about it. So what do you think is going on there? Obviously, we're speculating, but what's going on there? Because he was good on loan. He was a good squad player on loan, but he's kind of almost even drifted away from that squad role, Josh. It seems like he's not even playing a squad role now. He's kind of drifted further to the fringes. I guess we'll see how up for the Celtic fight he is over the coming weeks and months, just with the volume of games. It's inevitable that he's going to be playing matches, but Arne Engels is ahead of him, of course. Rio Tate's ahead of him. Even looks like Luke McCowan is ahead of him at times, certainly of late. And obviously Callum McGregor's there as well. He doesn't fit the picture at the moment. And a lot of people like Bernardo want to see more of him, but he must not be shown enough in training or whatever to kind of convince anyone that he should be, he's worth a starting berth.
Yeah, it's strange. I think it's obviously difficult though, because like you mentioned all the names there, Celtic have got 6 players in that midfield who you could say are worthy of getting a start. All the guys you mentioned, the McCowan, McGregor's of this world, Engels, Nygren even as well, Hatate, and then you've got Bernardo there. So it seems like he's, at the minute, even under Martin O'Neill and Sean Maloney, he's the 6th choice central midfielder. It's certainly a weird situation, because I've heard quotes from Andy Halliday, God forbid saying his name, on a Celtic podcast, but he was saying on Open Goal, I think as recently as a couple of weeks ago, that he's heard from various people that Paulo Bernardo is one of the best players in Celtic training, which begs the question of what really is happening behind the scenes. And that's why I think a new manager coming in could certainly breathe a bit of new life into him if he gets an opportunity. He's made only I think it's 2 starts this season. I want to say the Livingston game near the start of the campaign, and then he played the Braga game as well. To be fair, in that Braga game, he didn't really set the header alight, so maybe it's a case of not taking his opportunities when he's actually on the park. But my opinions of Bernardo are that he's a very good player. He can be very useful. For Celtic, he's got a lot of dig, fight, energy. I remember the first derby game of last season, Celtic won 3-0 at Parkhead. Paulo Bernardo started in midfield that day and it was outstanding. It's like a real Rottweiler in the middle of the park. So that's the levels he can reach. And it's just about, hopefully under Wilfred Nancy, him getting back to those levels.
Yeah, just looking at the raw numbers, the raw appearance numbers, he started 15 times in his first season when he was on loan, started 15 times, came off the bench on 18 occasions. In his second season last season, he started 19 times, came off the bench 25 times. So even if he wasn't starting, he was playing in the majority of games, basically. This season, 2 starts, as he mentioned, 4 appearances off the substitute bench. He appeared off the bench against Midtjylland, but before that, he hadn't made an appearance since September. It's a difficult situation. One of those ones where, for the midfielders, sometimes I think you think, well, what's unique about them? What are they uniquely adding to the Celtic midfield? And Paulo Bernardo sits in that middle ground for weird. I'm not quite sure. Like, you look at Arne Engels, he's got a few fantastic set pieces. He can play those boom-in passes that take players out of the game. Cal McGregor obviously has everything tied up in the leadership around him and what he brings to the squad generally. Ray Otati can be a bit of a maverick at times. If he's not playing well, it's not going well. But if he does play well, Celtic are, a slick, creative attacking outfit. And to an extent, Luke McCowan, he can make that impact in the final third as well. Bernardo's a bit of an all-rounder. He doesn't really have something that he's offering uniquely for me, and I guess that's what we need to see from him going forward. I think at his best, he is that player who can make those driving runs into the box beyond the attacking line and kind of be that box-to-box all-rounder and add a spark and tenacity to that midfield that sometimes Celtic lack. But if he doesn't have that tenacity, if he's not showing that kind of, as you said, Rottweiler style of kind of aggression, that pit bull attitude, then what is he bringing to the Celtic team? And maybe that is the determination on Bernardo. I'm a fan of him. I'm not saying I'm not, but it's like, what is his unique thing that he's bringing to the Celtic team? And that's sometimes the question mark about him for me.
Yeah, I think the one silver lining is, as we keep mentioning these days, that this run of games Celtic have upcoming, there's bound to be an opportunity for almost every single player in that first team squad. So just like to think that when it comes around for Bernardo, he looks to take it to the best of his ability, and like I say, under a new manager, he might get that chance.
Yeah. Any questions from the chat? Would be happy to take them at the moment. So DQ saying Martin O'Neill will be in place on Saturday. Makes sense given where we are with Nancy. What we are hearing is we have to win. Yeah, again, we do need that continuity in there. Bobby Killing just referencing our new Black Friday offer on the Celtic Way website. The Nakamura offer, which I'll show again in a minute. Nakamura in the Champions League is what made us American, with no Glasgow ties. At time a Celtic fan for life when I was a teenager. World class left foot. Yeah, you talk about world class in relation to Celtic. There haven't been many players I would consider to have a world class attribute. Even in my lifetime, even stretching back, I think obviously Henrik Larsson had world class finishing ability, but Shinsuke Nakamura undoubtedly at that time, I genuinely believe he was the best set piece taker in the world at the time. His left foot was magic, and again, like I said, just the way he took the ball in and distributed his passes across the field and made such an impact, a cultured impact at Celtic was remarkable. And it's actually I had an interview with Graham Spears on this channel a few weeks ago, or maybe a couple of months ago back now. But I had a long chat with Graham Spears about Gordon Strachan's time at Celtic, because Graham Spears has been doing these kind of evening circuits with former Celtic managers, Martin O'Neill being one of them, of course. But he's also been doing them with Gordon Strachan. And he was telling me about how Gordon Strachan identified and found Shinsuke Nakamura, which was ultimately on the telly. Josh, we're talking about international football. He saw Shinsuke Nakamura playing for Japan in the Confederations Cup just prior to coming to Celtic, I think, and said, I need to have that guy in my Celtic team moving forward. And that's kind of how Nakamura ended up at Celtic. And he's one of those players that just immediately is aesthetically pleasing to watch play football. That's what I always loved about Shinsuke Nakamura. You talk about stats, you talk about your data, and I'm not saying we should all be against that. But sometimes it's just a pleasure to see a guy who can strike a ball as sweetly as anything, and that's why we're celebrating him with our Black Friday sale. We've got the Shinsuke Nakamura print at the moment. £1 for 6 months or £12 for 12 months. If you subscribe to the website, the link is in the live chat. It's in the description below. If you subscribe before the end of December 1st, you get this free A3 Shinsuke Nakamura print. Josh, anything else you want to cover before we move on?
Not particularly, just to add that Shinsuke Nakamura's goal catalogue, I think he'd struggled to find a better one from a Celtic player in recent times. You know, some of his free kicks were just incredible. Even that goal against Rangers at Parkhead in the 2-1 game when Jan Vennegoor Hesselink scored at the last minute, that was an incredible strike. Just like you say, world class in that regard when you're looking at long range finishing.
The swerve he gets on that goal it's almost like that. I don't think I'll ever see another football behave in that manner in a Celtic game, in any game in the world. I don't think I've ever seen a shot like that, a goal like that. The way he gets the swerve on that to take the ball away from the goalkeeper is it's almost otherworldly, Josh. I don't want to add too much sauce and hyperbole onto it, but I just don't think I'm going to see another goal that looks like that ever again. And that's what makes a player like Nakamura so unique, is that, you know, players score amazing goals all the time, but no one's ever scored a goal like that and will ever score a goal like that again.
And as well, the free kick side of things, like since Nakamura was at the club, I can only really remember one player who had a free kick ability that was even decent, and that's Lee Griffiths. I genuinely can't remember the last time Celtic even scored a free kick, just in general. So, yeah, spoiled when Nakamura was at the club.
And he put a lot of dedication into that. You know, it wasn't, and it was, of course, there's an element of natural ability to it, but he worked so hard on his free kicks. There's stories of him staying at training for a long time just to hone in his set piece ability, hone in his free kick ability. He made it his trade back. He's almost world famous because of it. You know, talk about world class, but everyone knows Nakamura's free kicks. Europe, Japan, he's a hero in Japan. And yeah, we'll talk more about Nakamura as the weeks go on, but yeah, he's certainly one of my favourite all times Celtic players in my lifetime. Listen, we thank everyone for joining us this morning. I know Celtic are in this kind of limbo period at the moment, Josh, where we're obviously building towards the game. We've got the AGM ahead, of course. I know Tony and Ryan talked about that yesterday. We'll have more coverage of that on the website and the YouTube channel as the week progresses as well. It's this weird limbo stage where you don't know whether Celtic are coming or going at the moment. That kind of leads to a natural anxiety. But I think Celtic get their man in the door, build ahead, see what the excitement comes from a new manager, new fresh ideas coming in. Celtic are bursting out for fresh ideas, not just in the dugout, but in the boardroom as well. If we at least get it in the dugout for a bit, that will add a bit of excitement and optimism, I think, to everyone at the moment, while the club considers what kind of football club it wants to be going forward long term.
Yeah, and I think just having that guy in the dugout that everyone can get behind with the new ideas. I mean, I know Martin O'Neill coming in was a very much a uniting figure within the support. Everyone got behind him straight away, but a new guy coming in, not similar to Postecoglou, but in a way that if he's a figure like him, because Nancy certainly seems like a real leader. You look at him, he's just physically seems like quite an imposing character. Some of the things he says in press conferences I think are impressive. So if he comes in, he unites the support and everyone gets behind him, and his new ideas on the park, I think will serve Celtic well if he is to be the man.
And what was your kind of takeaway from speaking to Larry Henry Jr.? Obviously, I would recommend everyone go and watch that. The video is up on the Celtic Way YouTube channel as we speak. But what was your kind of main takeaways from that, and the kind of the sense of, because he's dealt with Nancy personally, he kind of knows what he's all about. What was your kind of sense from Larry?
I think what Larry, akin to what a lot of people think across the pond, is that Wilfred Nancy's ready for this step. He's been the best coach in the MLS for a number of years now, winning trophies, winning silverware, and Larry obviously has dealt with him in press conferences and the like, and says that he's really good in that regard. Always happy to ask kind of everyone's questions. You know, you sometimes get managers who bring out the PR trained answers at times. He says Wilfred Nancy isn't that type of figure.
That's what I love to hear.
Exactly, and in terms of his football as well, exciting to watch. So yeah, everyone should certainly go and check that out.
Celtic fans need that. I think, especially in this age where Celtic don't get a lot of anything from the club, and there's a lot of kind of there's a fog over actually what's going on at the club. I think Celtic need a figurehead in place who can carry that and speak with authority and credibility, really, and honesty, rather than this kind of media trained answer and shutting down everything. I really hope we see that from whoever the new Celtic manager is, that they have that element to them. Obviously, managing Celtic's about a lot more than that, but it would just be nice to get that feeling again, because I think it does help galvanise the supporters with the team and with the manager going forward. And the manager, and we've talked about this a lot over the last week, but the manager, whoever's coming in, has a massive job ahead. It's a really difficult task coming into Celtic mid-season with all these injury issues and this schedule ahead, behind in the league, etc., behind, kind of trending behind in Europe as well. There's a lot to do, and whoever comes in, whether it's Nonce or whoever, they need to come in and immediately galvanise the fans with what they're trying to do and what they're trying to achieve at Celtic. So, yes. What's more to discuss? I think Ryan and Tony are back tomorrow morning for lots more, all the latest, whatever news develops over the next 24 hours. And as I say, lots more coverage of the managerial situation and the AGM upcoming on the channel and the website, celticway.co.uk/subscribe. As I say, get your Shinsuke Nakamura print. And we'll see you next time. Thanks everyone in the live chat. Thanks everyone below. Let us know how you're feeling about Celtic at the moment. And we'll see you again next time on the Celtic Way.